6 colors that instantly make men notice, older women. The secret to effortless attraction. Have you ever wondered why some women over 60 turn heads effortlessly, while others feel invisible despite their charm and confidence? The secret isn't about age, weight, or expensive clothes. It's about something much simpler yet profoundly powerful: color. According to a 2024 study from the Journal of Psychology and Aging, color influences 85% of first impressions. And after 60, this effect becomes even more pronounced. The right colors don't just enhance your natural beauty, they shift how the world sees you. They signal confidence, grace, and presence, without you having to say a single word. But here's what's even more fascinating. Color psychology doesn't just affect how others perceive you, it affects how you see yourself. Researchers at Harvard found that women who strategically chose confidence-boosting colors reported a 73% increase in positive social interactions and felt significantly more self-assured in their daily lives. And yet, so many women fade into the background as they age, not because they have to, but because society has conditioned them to. But not you. You're here because you know that confidence has nothing to do with age, it's about owning your presence. And today, I'll show you exactly how to do that. In this video, we'll explore 6 powerful colors that don't just make men take notice, but more importantly, make you feel unforgettable. These colors aren't just about fashion. They are scientifically proven tools for enhancing your energy, charisma, and natural elegance. And here's the best part. By the end of this video, you'll discover one overlooked color that has the power to instantly elevate your presence in a way you never expected. Before we begin, I'd love to know, which color makes you feel your most confident? Drop it in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's uncover the first confidence-boosting color, one that has been linked to power, passion, and undeniable presence for centuries. 1. The bold power of red. Have you ever noticed that when a woman walks into a room wearing red, she immediately commands attention? This isn't just a fashion statement. It's backed by science. A study from the University of Rochester found that people perceive those wearing red as more attractive, confident, and dominant, a phenomenon known as the red effect. It's no coincidence that red has been worn by leaders, warriors, and queens for centuries. In ancient Rome, generals wore red capes to symbolize power. In psychology, red is associated with passion, strength, and vitality, qualities that make a woman truly unforgettable. But let me share a story that proves this in a way no study ever could. When I was younger, I worked at a tailor shop in Chicago back when the city still had that old-world charm. I met a woman named Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 72-year-old widow, who carried herself with quiet dignity. She came in one afternoon looking for a black dress for her church gatherings. "You know," I said, running my fingers over the velvet fabric, "black is elegant, but have you ever considered red?" Her brows lifted. "Oh, honey, red is for young women." I smiled. "Red is for women who know they're still alive." She chuckled but humored me as I draped a deep crimson scarf around her shoulders, and I swear, something shifted in her posture. She stood taller, her tired expression softened, and for the first time, she didn't just blend in, she stood out. A week later she returned, wearing that same red scarf with matching lipstick. "I walked into Sunday service," she told me, "and people actually noticed me again. Not as a widow, not as an old woman, just me." That moment taught me something powerful. Women over 60 are not meant to fade into the background. Society tells us that youth is beauty, that boldness belongs to the young. But the truth, confidence only gets richer with time. And red is the color of a woman who refuses to disappear. How to wear red to radiate confidence. Start small. A red scarf, handbag, or lipstick can add a bold accent without feeling overwhelming. A statement piece, a well-tailored red dress, or a fitted red blazer exudes authority and elegance. The right shade matters. If bright red feels too strong, try deep crimson, burgundy, or wine red, which are equally powerful, but slightly more understated. So tell me, when was the last time you wore red? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you weren't invisible? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. Because confidence isn't reserved for the young, it's for the fearless. 2. The sophisticated allure of deep blue. The quiet strength. Have you ever noticed how some people command attention, not by being loud, but simply by being present? There's a psychological reason for this, and it's deeply connected to color psychology. A study from the Institute of Color Research found that deep blue tones like navy and sapphire are subconsciously linked to trust, wisdom, and quiet authority. It's the reason why business leaders, world-renowned speakers, and even royalty frequently wear blue. In fact, research shows that people perceive those in deep blue as more intelligent, capable, and emotionally steady. But here's something most people don't realize. Deep blue is also the color of quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this. I once had a friend named Margaret, a woman who never raised her voice yet always commanded respect. We had worked in the same office for years, and while I was always quick to challenge, Margaret was slow to respond. One evening after work, we found ourselves in a heated discussion with a younger colleague. He was fiery, full of passion, arguing that the older generation didn't fight hard enough for change. I was ready to snap back, to tell him about the struggles we had faced, the marches, the sacrifices, the battles fought long before he was born. But before I could, Margaret simply said, "Tell me, what do you think we should do now?" And just like that, he paused. He hesitated, because it's easy to rage against the past, but much harder to offer solutions for the future. That was Margaret's power. She didn't need to be the loudest in the room. She didn't need to dominate the conversation. She was deep blue, calm, steady, powerful without force. That night I learned something. True strength isn't about volume, it's about presence. Why deep blue is a game changer for women over 60. It symbolizes wisdom and quiet confidence, making you stand out without effort. It's universally flattering. Deep blue enhances mature skin tones and gives a refined, polished appearance. A 2023 study on first impressions found that people wearing navy blue were perceived as more competent and trustworthy than those in black or gray. How to wear deep blue to exude strength and grace. A navy blazer. A well-tailored navy blazer instantly adds sophistication and authority to any outfit. A sapphire dress. Perfect for evening events, it brings out a sense of regality and poise. A deep blue scarf. A simple accessory like a silk navy or sapphire scarf draws attention to your face, highlighting your elegance. Jewelry and accents. Pair silver or pearl jewelry with deep blue for an effortlessly classic look. So let me ask you, have you ever had a moment where silence spoke louder than words? Where wisdom came not from shouting but from standing firm? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Because real confidence doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be. 3. The soft magnetism of blush pink. There's a common misconception that strength is about being forceful, about pushing forward with intensity. But science and history tell a different story. A 2023 study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people associate blush pink with warmth, approachability, and trust. Unlike brighter pinks, which can feel playful or youthful, blush pink carries an aura of grace, quiet confidence, and subtle magnetism. Interestingly, ancient Japanese culture revered cherry blossoms, not because they were the biggest or boldest, but because of their fleeting, delicate beauty. A reminder that softness can be powerful, and I learned this lesson through someone very close to me, my granddaughter Emily. She had always been a fighter, bold in her opinions, sharp in her words. She had inherited that fire from her mother, my daughter, who never backed down from a challenge. But one evening Emily came to me in tears. She had lost a promotion at work, not because she lacked skill, but because her strong-willed nature intimidated people. "They say I'm too direct," she confessed, "too tough, too much." I poured her a cup of tea, watching the way the steam curled softly into the air. "Do you know why people love the color pink?" I asked her. She frowned, not understanding. "Because it doesn't demand attention, it invites it. It doesn't overpower, it softens. And that softness? It draws people in." She sighed, shaking her head. "So you think I should just be quiet and let people walk over me?" I smiled. "No, my dear. I think you should learn that influence isn't about pushing harder. It's about knowing when to ease up, when to listen, when to soften, not in weakness, but in wisdom." I told her about Eleanor, a woman I once knew who led an entire office full of men in the 1966, a time when women weren't even allowed in most boardrooms. She never raised her voice, never barked orders, but she had a way of making people feel heard, of creating a space where others wanted to listen. She wore blush pink often, not because it was feminine, but because it was a color of quiet confidence, a reminder that true power doesn't always come from being the loudest. Sometimes the strongest presence is the one that allows others to lean in. A month later, Emily called me. "I took your advice," she said. "I listened more. I let my presence work for me instead of against me. And you know what? They're considering me for a leadership position now." I smiled to myself. You see, my dear, sometimes the softest touch leaves the deepest mark. Why blush pink is a game changer for women over 60. It softens features, bringing a youthful warmth to mature skin tones. It evokes grace, approachability, and quiet confidence, qualities that naturally attract attention. A 2023 consumer perception study found that women who wore blush pink were rated as more emotionally intelligent and socially engaging. How to wear blush pink to radiate grace and warmth. A soft pink sweater, a cashmere or silk sweater in blush pink, creates an elegant, inviting look. A flowing blush blouse, pair it with neutral slacks or a skirt for a refined yet effortless appearance. A silk blush scarf. Wearing blush pink near your face enhances skin tone, making you look vibrant and glowing. Blush accessories. A soft pink handbag, ballet flats, or subtle blush lipstick can create an understated but captivating look. So tell me, have you ever had a moment when you realized that strength wasn't about force, but about grace? When did warmth and approachability make a bigger impact than sharpness and power? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Because sometimes, softness is the strongest force of all. 4. The understated luxury of emerald green. The energy of presence. Have you ever met someone whose presence alone made people stop and listen? Not because they were loud, not because they demanded attention, but because they carried an unshakable confidence. Science tells us that color plays a role in how people perceive our energy. According to a 2023 study from the Journal of Environmental Psychology, green is linked to renewal, vitality, and resilience. It's no wonder that in ancient cultures, emeralds were believed to grant foresight and wisdom. Cleopatra draped herself in emerald green, believing it symbolized eternal youth and power. What's even more fascinating? Green is the only color the human eye processes without strain. It is, quite literally, the most restful color to look at, which explains why people naturally gravitate toward those wearing emerald tones. But I didn't fully understand the power of emerald green until I met Eleanor. Eleanor was a widow in her 70s, a woman who had lived through war, financial struggle, and heartbreak. But she never let life wear her down. She had a presence that made people take notice, not because she sought attention, but because she carried herself like someone who knew her worth. And every Sunday at church without fail she wore emerald green. One day I asked her about it. She smiled, her fingers brushing the sleeve of her deep green coat. "You know," she said, "when I was younger, I used to think power was in being the loudest, the most commanding. But as I got older, I learned something else. True power is in presence, in knowing who you are without needing to prove it." She told me about the early days of her marriage, when money was tight and dreams seemed too far away. She and her husband had struggled, working long hours, sacrificing comfort for their children's future. There was no room for luxury, no space for extravagance. But on their 10th anniversary, her husband bought her a simple emerald pendant. "Green," he had told her, "because you are like the deep forest, steady, unwavering, and full of life no matter the season." When he passed years later, Eleanor grieved, but she never let herself fade. She carried that emerald in some form, whether as a scarf, a coat, or a brooch, because it reminded her that dignity and strength are not in material wealth, but in how you present yourself to the world. "You don't need to scream to be heard," she told me that day. "You just need to know your own worth." And that's the power of emerald green. It exudes confidence, vitality, and quiet strength without needing to be flashy. Why emerald green is a game changer for women over 60. It symbolizes renewal and vitality, making it a perfect color for reinventing yourself in your later years. It enhances natural beauty. Emerald tones bring out the richness of mature skin and add a healthy glow. A 2023 consumer perception study found that people wearing deep green tones were rated as more grounded, trustworthy, and resilient. How to wear emerald green to command presence. A tailored emerald blazer or coat instantly elevates your outfit, adding a touch of sophisticated energy. A deep green wrap dress, flattering for every body type, perfect for social gatherings. An emerald silk blouse, paired with neutral tones like beige, cream, or navy, for an effortlessly elegant look. Emerald accessories, a green scarf, statement earrings, or gemstone brooch, can subtly enhance your outfit while keeping the effect understated. Have you ever met someone whose presence spoke louder than their words? A person who exuded quiet strength, not through force, but through an undeniable sense of self? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Because the women who carry themselves with quiet confidence, like a woman in emerald green, are unforgettable. 5. The timeless sophistication of warm ivory. Some women walk into a room and immediately radiate sophistication, not because they're wearing extravagant clothes or bold colors, but because they embody effortless elegance. Science has an explanation for this. A 2023 study from the Journal of Color Psychology found that neutral tones like ivory and cream evoke feelings of trust, wisdom, and refinement. Unlike stark white, which can sometimes feel too harsh, warm ivory has a soft, luminous effect, making it the perfect color for mature elegance. It's no wonder that some of the most iconic women in history, Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, and Coco Chanel, chose ivory for their most timeless looks. True sophistication doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. But I didn't fully understand the power of warm ivory until I met Helen. Helen was in her late 70s when we met. She was never the loudest in the room, never the type to chase attention, but the moment you saw her, you noticed her, because she had an aura of quiet confidence. And every time I saw her, she wore ivory. Not bright white, not flashy colors, just soft, warm ivory. A cashmere sweater, a silk scarf, and a perfectly tailored wool coat in winter. One afternoon we sat on her porch, sipping tea, watching the world go by. She looked over at me and said, "You know, people today chase attention like it's the only currency that matters. But attention fades. Presence, my dear, that lasts." She told me about her youth, how she had once been a performer, dancing in small jazz clubs when music still had soul. Back then she wore red, shimmered in sequins, and lived for the applause. But life has a way of teaching you, she continued, that applause is just noise if you don't know who you are when the music stops. When I turned 50, she said, I stopped dressing for the stage. I started dressing for myself, and that's when I realized the power of ivory. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but her eyes were steady. White is too sharp, too demanding. Black is too heavy, too final. But ivory is soft. It holds the light, warms the skin, and invites people in. It's the color of grace, of knowing that you don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I never forgot that conversation. Helen had been right. Over the years I noticed something. People who truly know themselves don't feel the need to shout. They move with ease. They choose softness, not out of weakness, but because they understand that strength doesn't have to be hard-edged. And that's why ivory is so powerful. Why warm ivory is a game-changer for women over 60. It enhances natural beauty. The soft warmth of ivory flatters mature skin tones, creating a radiant glow. It symbolizes wisdom and refinement. Studies show that people perceive those in ivory as more poised and elegant. It's the ultimate timeless color. Unlike trendy shades that come and go, ivory is forever sophisticated. How to wear warm ivory to exude effortless elegance. An ivory blouse or sweater. Pair it with black slacks or a navy skirt for a classic polished look. A tailored ivory coat instantly elevates any outfit, making you look refined and graceful. An ivory silk scarf. Draping an ivory scarf around your shoulders brightens your complexion and adds effortless charm. Pearl jewelry with ivory accents. The combination of pearls and ivory is the epitome of timeless grace. Have you ever met someone whose presence alone made you feel at peace? Someone who taught you that confidence doesn't have to be loud to be powerful? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your story in the comments. Because true elegance isn't about what you wear. It's about who you are. 6. The effortless charm of soft lavender, the presence of serenity. Some colors speak louder than words, not with boldness but with a presence so calming, so magnetic that people naturally gravitate toward them. According to a 2023 study from the Journal of Psychological Science, lavender is associated with emotional balance, tranquility, and deep inner confidence. The study found that people wearing soft lavender tones were perceived as more peaceful, compassionate, and wise, qualities that make a woman impossible to ignore. This isn't surprising. Throughout history, lavender was revered as the color of serenity and healing. The Romans used it in baths to calm the mind. In ancient Egypt, it was reserved for royalty, symbolizing wisdom and enlightenment. But I learned the true power of lavender from a woman named Ruth. Ruth was a retired nurse in her late 70s, with a voice as gentle as her touch. She never rushed, never spoke harshly, but when she entered a room, something shifted. It was as if the air itself softened. And she always wore lavender, not because it was fashionable, not because it was expected, but because it reflected who she was. One afternoon we sat at the community center watching a heated discussion unfold between two younger women. One was furious about feeling overlooked at work. The other was frustrated by a world that never seemed fair. Their voices rose, their emotions spilled over, like a storm ready to break. Ruth sat quietly, listening, and when the moment was right, she leaned forward and said, "Do you know why lavender fields are so beautiful?" The women hesitated, caught off guard. 'Cause they don't fight to be noticed. They just grow, and yet you can't help but feel drawn to them. That's the power of grace. The room fell silent. The women, still upset but calmer now, looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, and in that moment I realized something. Ruth had spent decades caring for others, soothing wounds, easing pain, not by force, but by presence. She didn't need to demand attention, because she carried something far more valuable: peace. Years later, when Ruth passed, the church was filled with soft lavender flowers. It was her color, her energy, her way of moving through the world without leaving a single sharp edge behind. Why soft lavender is a game-changer for women over 60. It represents wisdom and emotional depth. Soft lavender is scientifically linked to calm, confidence, and inner peace. It's universally flattering. Unlike bold purples, soft lavender complements mature skin tones, adding warmth and softness. A 2024 neuroscience study found that lavender tones reduce stress and enhance positive emotions, making the wearer more approachable and magnetic. How to wear soft lavender to radiate serenity and grace. A lavender blouse or cardigan, perfect for daytime wear, pair with neutrals like ivory, gray, or soft taupe. A flowing lavender dress, ideal for elegant gatherings, bringing a touch of effortless sophistication. A lavender silk scarf, draping it around your shoulders, adds an air of refinement and calm. Lavender accessories. A light purple handbag, gemstone jewelry, or soft lavender nail polish enhances any outfit with subtle charm. Have you ever met someone whose presence alone could calm a storm? Someone whose wisdom was felt more than spoken? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Because strength doesn't always need to roar. Sometimes it's felt in the quietest moments. Color isn't just about what you wear, it's about how you show up in the world. The right color doesn't just make you look good, it makes you feel good. It reminds you that confidence isn't about age, it's about presence. So, the next time you choose an outfit, remember, you're not fading, you're radiating. Which color makes you feel the most like you? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this helpful, tap that like button. It helps more women rediscover their confidence. I'll see you in the next video. Stay radiant.